Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to continue my series on rock records that are based on pieces of literature or books from the past. Today we'll be looking at Jeff Wayne's interpretation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. This album was released in 1978. Jeff Wayne was a writer of jingles. He wrote an incredible amount of jingles for commercials through the 70s, and as a composer decided that he wanted to create this kind of epic retelling of the War of the Worlds. It is an interesting compilation of musicians and singers. The whole record kind of has a house band that does all the music. And then he hired many different popular singers and actors of the time to take up the singing and vocal parts. This is a slightly unique inclusion onto this list because it is straddles somewhere between the lines of a radio show and a prog rock record. Alan Parsons' project, which we discussed last time, with their Edgar Allan Poe, they cut each story into its own song and had a vocalist that sang those the story of the song. This one actually goes way more in depth to the story. Listening to this record, you basically get the entirety of the story of the novel War of the Worlds, because he hired a narrator to kind of narrate this almost like a radio show throughout the entire thing. He hired Richard Burton, who was a famous actor at the time, has a wonderful voice, is a great narrator on this record, and every song includes portions of spoken word that he uses to tell the story of War of the Worlds. And then it will go into kind of traditional singing moments, but they never really fall, except for a couple of exceptions that I'll go over later, they never really fall into the verse, chorus structure. The album is usually more of a narrator speaking and then vocal section and then narrator speaking again. So the narrator kind of takes over the verses in many parts. The music for this piece is very, very unique and very interesting. I call it prog rock, but it is kind of in a world of its own. He wanted, of course, to use a synthesizer, and he got a fantastic keyboardist. I don't know anything else that he's really done, but he does an incredible job on this record. He creates strange noises, alien noises, the death ray noises, and they're all very well done. The instrumental sections, of course, include the traditional rock guitars and bass and drums and everything, but those additions of the synth give it almost a space rock, otherworldly feel. And the album is really worth it just for the instrumentals alone. And then when you add on the addition of the narrator and all this storytelling, it's really a gem from the 70s of rock storytelling, if that's even a thing. Yeah, so overall, it was just kind of a labor of love for Jeff Wayne, and he was able to pull through his colleagues and his friends a lot of big name people to help him put this record together, and it was really a very successful endeavor. I'd like to really quick just kind of go through the track list and talk a little bit about each song. The album opens with Eve of War, which is about the aliens first coming down, first being spotted in the sky. It is probably the best piece of music on the album, in my opinion. There are some other really strong pieces, but this opening is, for me, the real top of the record. It's sung by Justin Hayward, who's the lead singer of the Moody Blues. And you can tell right away it's his voice. It sounds incredible. It has a very Moody Blues feel to it. But you add the incredible storytelling by H.G. Wells of the ship landing and then the top unscrewing and the alien coming out of the ship. It's incredible. It really builds the tension of the piece. This is followed by, and if I mispronounce any of these names or any of these words, you'll have to forgive me, Horsell Common and the Heat Ray, which is when we're first introduced to the concept of the superior weapons the aliens possess. Instrumental, but it does have narration. Incredible song. Really is, in my mind, connected to the first one as one giant piece. It is side one of the record. It has a really wonderful driving bass line that pushes the song forward all the way throughout, and the synth and the sounds of the heat rays are just incredible. This is followed by the Artilleryman and the Fighting Machine. And this is sung by David Essex, who is the singer of the popular song Rock On. He does an incredible job. Again, we get that narrator and then the vocals and then the narrator. This is followed by, I guess, what would kind of be considered the hit. There's really two hits. The first one I talked about, The Eve of War, was released as a single. And this next one, Forever Autumn, also sung by Justin Hayward, is the second release of a single from this record. Both of them Justin Hayward tunes. Both of them the most musically straightforward. Forever Autumn itself, although it does go into the narration in the middle, for the single release they could cut it down to a perfect verse chorus structure, and they had a strong single on their hands, again with that Moody Blues feel, because Justin Hayward's voice is so recognizable. That moves on to after Forever Autumn we get Thunderchild. This is sung by Chris Thompson, who was part of Manfred Mann. He's known for being the singer on Blinded by the Light. We start to, in my opinion, get a teeny bit of a drag here, and that's not the fault of Chris Thompson or the song. It's just, it doesn't have the same initial scariness, if I can use that word, that the beginning of the album has with Eve of War. It kind of starts to seem poppier here, and the story's great. It's about, of course, Thunderchild, the warship, saving the people on the ship that's trying to get out of the harbor while the aliens are attacking. But for some odd reason, I felt a slight lag in the album here that is quickly kind of remedied by the Red Weed Part 1, which goes back to the scary noises and the narration that I think really is the strongest point of this record, is him telling the story with this incredible instrumental music behind it. From there we get The Spirit of Man, which is sung by Julie Covington. Julie Covington is most known for her version of Don't Cry For Me Argentina, which is kind of considered it's a version everybody knows of that tune, which I think is from the musical Evita. Again, we're at this kind of weird point in the album where there's all these little stories going on that aren't as 100% interesting to me as the aliens first coming down and landing. And this is true of the book as well. In H.G. Wells's book, the first part of the book is so terrifying and so very well done. And then he goes into these small, I'll say vignettes, about how people are dealing with this apocalyptic situation. And then that leads us to the final end of the story, which is, of course, spoiler alert, stop if you've never read it. But I think everybody knows this story really, really well. You get this incredible ending point where what finally defeats the aliens is the common cold. Absolutely brilliant Ex Machina. And I'm not usually a fan of Ex Machina, but in that case, it's just incredibly well thought out and well done. And I think the album suffers this same kind of fate. These songs are all interesting, but not as interesting as the bookends of the beginning of the end of this story of alien invasion. After that, we go to the Red Weed Part 2, and this is sung by Phil Lynott. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. Phil Lynott is the frontman of Thin Lizzy. He's got a gritty voice that sounds incredible on this record. He plays the Parsons, and he is lamenting that he could not save the world from this terrible invasion, which he sees as more satanic than actual Martian. Really well done. Again, not the story that we're aching for, which is the story of what's going to happen to the aliens. And then the Artilleryman does return in the next track, which is Brave New World. Again, this is David Essex who sang Rock On. And this is kind of his vision of man living underground and the narrator slowly realizing that he's insane. And then we get to the kind of final bits of the album, which in my opinion are just as strong as the first parts. The next track is called Dead London, and it is almost ballad-like in its musical presentation, although there's no vocals. The narration is incredible, straight from the book. H.G. Wells was an incredible prose writer, and he just talks about finding these dead alien machines, realizing they're not moving, and the birds are picking away at the red weed that had grown over the entire planet. It's incredible. And then halfway through that track, we return to the same themes, musical themes that were at the beginning of the Eve of War track, and it kind of bookends the album in similar sounds. Absolutely incredible into this album. The next two tracks are Epilogue 1 and Epilogue 2, which add Jeff Wayne's own little twist onto the ending of the book or wasn't really present in the end of the book, but is a great modern little twist that he puts at the end of the record. I won't spoil it. Give it a listen. This album is absolutely worth your time. It is not the traditional fare that I usually look for, which are songs or albums based on old literature. This one straddles that line between radio show and rock opera, but it's incredible. It's a wonderful retelling of the book. Absolutely worth a listen. It's an incredible album. It kind of sags a little bit in the middle, but overall it's worth it. You sit around your radio like it's a TV, and it's completely worth the experience. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.